Hello, welcome to my new baking channel. I'm just kidding. Today is a little bit different. I kind of wanted to take you into one of my hobbies outside of the harp, which is baking. So this is something that I got into about 2 years ago. My sister-in-law introduced me to it, and it's actually a very special type of baking, which I'll get into. But yeah, today I just kind of wanted to chat and kind of invite you into another aspect of my life and just kind of walk you through kind of my process in learning a new skill that you might be able to relate to when you're learning something like the harp and whatever other hobbies or interests that you have. Throughout this video, you're gonna see me like looking down at my recipe. I'd love to be one of those bakers that can just kind of have that recipe in their head and just kind of go through it and not have to like look at the page, but that is not where I'm at. Yeah, let's just kind of catch up. I'll just pretend you're like sitting at my counter and we're just having a nice little chat. But maybe I can, as I'm getting started, I'll just kind of get into what exactly this type of baking is. So my sister-in-law, she discovered a new but old type of way of baking bread, and it's actually milling your own flour, because a lot of commercialized bread that we see in the stores, a lot of it is actually not the most nutritious. So this bread, it has all of its natural elements and ingredients, and there is actually like a pure type of grain that has like 40 out of 44 of the essential nutrients. It's just very nutritious to eat. And so I love bread, so this is exciting news for me that I could actually mill my own flour, and I could make an entire video about this. It's really not what this video is about, but you might be interested in it. Maybe some of you also do this, and that's awesome. We should chat. So that's what I'm doing today. I've actually already milled my flour. So what you do is you buy these wheat berries, and then you put them in this mill, and it comes out through this little chute, and you get this fresh flour that has all of these really incredible nutrients in it. So this is the flour that we're working with today. I've got my other ingredients set out. So let me just kind of dive in. Okay, so here's my warm water. I need to add the honey. So 2 tablespoons. And just so you know, I have always been a little intimidated by baking. My mom and my sister did it a lot growing up, but it was just one of those things that I enjoyed eating what was being baked, but not necessarily like putting in the effort to do it. But now that I'm older and have kind of like discovered this really like fascinating side of or type of bread, it's become more of an interest for me. But like I said, it actually really used to intimidate me. I can remember like one of my earliest memories of baking was with my grandma, which was always really fun. That was always a blast. But I remember in middle school, my friend and I were making some chocolate chip cookies at my house, and I misread the tablespoons or the teaspoons per tablespoon. So I put like the amount of salt in tablespoons instead of teaspoons, which you can imagine was not a good combination in chocolate chip cookies. So they were very salty. And I think from that point on, I was just like, oh man, maybe I'm not cut out for baking. I'll just kind of stick to playing the harp. And, you know, I did a few sports growing up, but baking was just never something I like did. And so maybe some of you can relate. Maybe music, playing the harp, is one of those things that you never considered yourself to be very musical, but you've always thought it'd be kind of cool to maybe play the harp, and so you're kind of taking that leap, but still maybe feeling like, I don't know, like an outsider a little bit, because I know I certainly feel that way, but it's one of those things where you just kind of, you go for it, and I think there's a lot to learn from it, which I'm finding out, which a lot of trial and error, and things don't go perfectly. I've had my fair share of mistakes, in addition to putting too much salt in the cookies. Like a few weekends ago was my husband Zach's birthday, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna make him these, what are they called? Cinnamon rolls. I don't know why that word just popped out of my mind. I was making cinnamon rolls, and I like spent an hour preparing all the ingredients. I got everything ready to go. I had the bread rising. I put the butter in the microwave and got all the other ingredients together. I come back an hour later to see how much it had risen to get ready to like put it in the oven, and it hadn't risen at all. And I was like, oh no, what have I done? What went wrong? I know I followed the recipe to a T. Why has it risen at all? And then I open the microwave and there's the butter still sitting in there. It'd been there for like an hour and a half. And I felt pretty defeated. I was like, man, I just spent all this time. I was trying to be really intentional and making my husband some cinnamon rolls for his birthday for him to wake up to. And I ruined it because of the butter in the microwave. And I just got really hard on myself. I might have shed a few tears. I know that's kind of embarrassing to say over cinnamon rolls, but I don't know. I think when you try something new, like we tie it to our identities a lot. I know that's the case with music for me, at least, is that if you don't do it perfectly, it almost feels like an attack on your identity a little bit. And so what I'm kind of learning is to kind of like separate my identity from whatever I'm doing, whether that's playing the harp, whether that's baking, and just say like, okay, I might have made a mistake, but that's not an attack on who I am. It just means maybe I need to pay a little more attention next time and just really make sure that I have all the ingredients in the recipe. To be honest, today, there's a good chance I'm gonna like mess something up because I feel like I have to be really focused when baking. So now that we're talking, yeah, there's a good chance something might go wrong. So let's see, let me continue. Okay, I've got the warm water, the honey and yeast. I also have to like read the instructions out loud. Okay, it's foamy, that's good. Now I'm gonna add the 4 cups of this nutritious flour to this bowl. And some of you might be bakers and you're probably like watching me do some of this and thinking she has no idea what she's doing. And that's pretty much true. I'm kind of just doing it the best I know how, but I think that's how it goes when you're learning something new. Like unless you've spent years really studying a craft and perfecting it and learning, sometimes it just takes time and you might do things a little bit unconventionally, but I've been doing this for a few years and like I said, made some mistakes along the way, but the recipes have still turned out delicious most of the time, so that's good. Okay, 3. Really gotta make sure I count this. That's definitely important. Again, this is like you're watching an amateur bake today, so don't you can try this at home, whatever I'm doing, but yeah, that's not very impressive. Okay, I have got the flour, I've got the salt. It was helpful, I kind of measure things out beforehand just to make it a little bit easier. All right, we've got our salt. Okay, and olive oil. Now we're going to add the water yeast mixture. Okay. And I told you my sister-in-law, she's the one who introduced me to baking like with this type of flour. And she also has shared it with my other sister-in-law. And so we have like a group chat going where we just kind of like share recipes and kind of like share pictures of what we made, and it's really fun to kind of like connect with them over this. And like we share when things go well, but we also share when we have some fails, and it's just kind of nice to have that community, just that small, the 3 of us, just to kind of like share like, oh my gosh, this happened today, I forgot to put the butter in, or I mixed up like which kind of wheat berries to use and I don't know how it's going to turn out. And a lot of times, like, I feel kind of embarrassed at first, like, oh my gosh, like, they probably know what they're doing. You know, they're feeding their families. Like, they make bread a lot more often than I do. So I feel like they've gotten really good at it. But when I text them, they're always just so encouraging and uplifting. And they're like, oh man, like, I've done that so many times. You have no idea. Or like, just try it again. Like, just see it as a fun challenge. And I realized that, like, when I meet with harp students, and something goes wrong, maybe they play a few wrong notes in a lesson, or they're telling me about a performance that went wrong, I have the same approach and like the same response to them. Like, oh, it's okay. Like, I've been there before. I know what that feels like, but just try it again. It's no big deal. Like, just brush it off. And so like, it was kind of this aha moment of like texting them and like getting that response back and thinking, wow, maybe I should like take my own advice and not be so hard on myself. Just knowing that like, yeah, this is something that's new to me, and a lot of the time I feel like I have very little idea what I'm doing. but I'm doing the best I can and I'm trying to enjoy it, and things are going to go wrong, and it just makes for funny stories. It's still a meaningful thing to do. And so I just appreciate that in this process. And hopefully you have people around you, whether it's in our Harp community or maybe you're in another hobby, that you just have people around you that can kind of relate to your learning process and just kind of pick you up when you're hard on yourself. Okay, let me hold that thought and just see what the next step is. Okay, so now here comes the fun but messy part where we're gonna start kneading. I might need a little more flour. So this is really the part where you bakers are probably gonna chuckle at how I do this, but that's okay. It still turns out good. But yeah, I know growing up and learning the harp, like I was really hard on myself, and I still am at times. Let me just set my timer real quick. Yeah, like I said, it's easy to kind of be our own worst critic, and to just think, man, like how could I make that mistake, or how could I mess that up? But most of the time, like it's really just not that big of a deal. And I'm kind of learning how to try new recipes and kind of get out of my comfort zone and not put so much focus on like the end result, which of course I want it to taste good. I want my husband to enjoy eating it. But at the end of the day, like I'm just doing this for fun. Like I could easily just go to the store and buy some English muffins. But today, like I've decided to make them from scratch, and like they're not going to be perfect. They're not going to look store-bought. They will taste good as long as I do everything correctly. But yeah, there's something really meaningful about like taking the time to learn a new craft and like being able to bless other people with it. And I think that's so true as you're learning the harp. It's not going to be a perfect journey, but like the fact that you are putting your heart into it and just kind of giving it your best shot and trusting that whatever you produce at the end of the day is meaningful. So I just kind of want to like share that thought with you and that encouragement that it's powerful, like how we speak to ourselves. And I've heard before, like, speak to yourself like you're a good friend. My friend, when I put too much salt in the chocolate chip cookies, I actually don't remember her being like super thrilled about it. So maybe that's not a good example, but we were like in middle school. I'm sure if we were older, she would be maybe a little more forgiving, who knows? But yeah, just like if you were teaching someone how to bake, maybe a grandchild or a friend, and they accidentally like put too much salt in, or who knows, something went wrong. Like you wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, what have you done? Like it's ruined. That's it. Like the day's over. There's nothing else we could do. No, you'd be like, okay, let's just find a way on how we can kind of counteract that step. What else can we do to make this turn out like it needs to turn out? Or let's just start over. It's okay. We've got plenty of time. So just like, how can you kind of have that approach to yourself and saying like, it's okay if it's not perfect. Yeah, I think that can be really powerful. Making mistakes in a new hobby, it's not a sign that you're not cut out for it. Like if you talk to any professional in any career, they're going to tell you that like their journey has been marked and shaped by things that didn't go as planned, like by things that went wrong. I know that's certainly the case for me, especially like when it comes to performing. Like you've probably heard me talk about before that like that has been a huge hurdle for me in overcoming performance anxiety. It's still something I'm working through, but like those performances that didn't go like I wanted them to, like those are the performances where I learned so much. And those are really the performances that kind of shape my outlook, and my response to those performances is kind of what helps me move forward, or has the capacity to help me move forward. If you let it derail you, there's that possibility too. But like I said, I think sometimes we can let perfection rob us of like the joy of just learning something new, even if it's not perfect. Okay, this dough is starting to take shape. That's cool. Let me just move this. You probably can't see very well. Not that there's too much to learn here, but it might be fun to watch. I think this is really relaxing. Some of the best advice I've gotten from one of my harp teachers when I was in college is that there is always going to be someone who knows more than you with anything. I mean, I teach a lot of students through the Learn the Harp platform. That doesn't mean I'm the best teacher. It really doesn't. There are way better teachers than me out there, but that doesn't mean that I don't have some value to add to the students I'm meeting with. And I think that's true with something like baking too. Like, there are plenty of better bakers out there. So don't let that fear of, oh, well, I shouldn't be playing the harp. There's way better harpists out there. I can't read music. Like, there's no reason I should be playing the harp. Instead of that kind of narrative, just kind of framing it as, sure, there may be people who know more than me, have more experience than me, but what difference does that make in terms of my enjoyment of playing the harp? And I think that's really freeing, because no matter how good you are at playing the harp or baking, like, there's always going to be someone who's a little bit further along in their journey, and you can't compare like your current step of the process to where they are, because they've probably spent years honing their craft, but the beginning of their journey probably looked a lot like yours did. And if they had let that, the fear of not being good enough or others being better, if they had let that stop them, their lives would probably look a lot differently. So just some food for thought. I learned this cool trick to see if the flour has developed enough. It's called the Windowpane test. So you take a little like golf ball sized amount and you kind of spread it between your fingers. And if it stretches like this, and that's a sign that you need to, there's my timer to go off. I'm kind of embarrassed that was a harp arpeggio set as my timer, but I meant to change that like years ago so it wouldn't be like, oh, it's so cliche, like she has a harp ringtone as a harpist, but I like always forget to do it. And now thousands of people are going to hear it. That's fine. All right. So this needs a little bit more time. Let's do like 3 minutes. Okay. I need to probably speed this process up a little bit. I'm trying to think of what else is new. I mean, we did move to this house recently. I probably haven't really shared that. So that's been really fun. This house was built in 1900, so it's 123 years old, which is pretty crazy. So the previous owners did a lot of renovations in it, like this kitchen, which I just absolutely love. So it's been a lot of fun kind of like painting the walls and just kind of making it into our own space. Okay. See, this is not a glamorous process. Like, it's sticking to the counter. I feel like I see people on YouTube like just whipping it and like kneading it all perfectly, and I'm over here just kind of like pretending to look like I know what I'm doing. Another update is we got a new kitten last weekend. Her name is Murph, and she is currently in the other room because if she was in here, she would be like probably jumping on my leg, wanting to be picked up, meowing. Maybe she'll make an appearance, who knows? But just thought it might be a little less distracting if she were not in the room today. But yeah, that's been fun. Just a lot of sweet things going on in our life right now. And as I'm kneading this bread, I'm realizing like things take time. And I know like when you're at the beginning of learning a new skill, I certainly was this way. Like I wanted to be able to make all these like really cool recipes and types of bread, but there were kind of just some like foundations I needed to cover of like, okay, how do I just make like a basic loaf of bread? How do I make, English muffins actually felt like a step for me. That seemed a lot more complicated than it actually is. But just kind of like the process of kneading bread, you can't really like expedite this unless you have like a bread machine or a stand mixer, which I do, but this is more conducive to conversation, right? But it just takes time. It takes time for the flour to develop those strands of gluten and to, make it as effective as possible when it's baking. And that's the same thing with our journeys in learning how to play an instrument or learning another skill, like cooking or baking, gardening, a new sport. Like you just have to spend that that important time kind of laying a good foundation. There you again with that harp sound. Yeah, you just have to take the time to really lay a good foundation, and then you can build upon that and build upon your knowledge. And I'm hoping one day, like, I'll have made this recipe so much that I won't have to look at the instructions. And maybe you feel the same way about playing the harp. Like, man, it'd be so great if one day I could be far enough along to be able to read music, or maybe to memorize all my music. We all have different goals, and goals are good to have for sure, but they're not the end result. They're just something to work towards. They keep us motivated, but not to sound cliche, but like, it's all about the journey, you know, and just what you can learn from things going wrong and things going right. And it's just really valuable. And it's satisfying when the bread really starts to get really smooth and elastic. Yeah, I'd be so curious to know, like, I would imagine if you're watching this video, you probably have some experience learning the harp, learning an instrument. But I would love to hear, like, is there another skill that you're wanting to learn, or that you are in the process of learning? And how is that going? Like, are you enjoying it? Like, is it going well? Do you feel like it's been a struggle? Do you need to have a little bit more grace for yourself? You can let me know in the comments. And I just it's fun to hear that, like, other people are also in this space of trying something new. So that would be really cool to share. And what's cool is that with things like baking or painting or music, like, what you create, it is so unique to you. Like, there's no one else who is gonna bake a loaf of bread or a batch of English muffins exactly like I will. They might make it better than me, but it's not going to be exactly the same, which is cool. There's never going to be someone who plays the harp exactly like you do, or plays a certain song. And so you may aspire to play like someone else, but it's really special that, like, we're all so different, and we have different hands and different types of creativity, different goals and motivations, that the way you play a song on the harp is going to be so unique to you. And I think that's just really cool. Okay. Let's try the Windowpane test again. I have a feeling we're almost there. So let's see how much stretch we got. Okay, it's getting pretty good. I realize it did rip, but, like, the gluten formation is definitely there. Okay, cool. Well, if I were to show you the entire process, we'd be here for several hours, because it has to, like, rise, and you have to cut out the English muffin circles and bake them. I just wanted to kind of take you at least through part of this journey and just kind of chat a little bit. And I hope this was encouraging, and that you can kind of just take some of my encouragement and apply it to your own journey with whatever you're learning. And just know that, like, just try to be easy on yourself and just enjoy whatever your process looks like. Enjoy that journey of learning and trying new things, and try to change that narrative in your mind of, man, I'm not cut out for this, to instead one of encouragement and trying to uplift you and see how you can be productive in that self-feedback. So let me know in the comments a new skill that you're learning. If it's the harp, that's cool. You can let me know maybe what song you're working on, but maybe you're trying something else new, like painting or gardening. Or my mom, a few years ago, she started doing rowing as a sport, which I thought was so cool. So yeah, just let me know what you're up to these days. And thanks for joining me in this fun little baking show. All right, I'll see you next time.